that bind us in compassion, one with another. In this time, we light the flame that signals our intention to find the sacred in every living thing. So this is what we plan to do today. We could have the next slide. I'm going to describe what we have done and what we are doing and why. We're going to share what's proposed. I have handouts for those in person, and we'll put a link to what's proposed for the folks who are online. We're going to convene small groups for some reflection, discussion, and feedback, both on-site here and online in breakout rooms, and then take any questions and talk about what the next steps are. So, what is this thing that we're doing? What are we proposing? Well, first of all, I want to say clearly that we're not getting rid of the current covenant. We're keeping the current covenant. We're adding to it, not replacing it. So in light of this morning's service, we're adding to it, not getting rid of it altogether, adding more voices, right? And all of the information that you'll need for today is in the handout that we're going to provide. We're also proposing adding or modifying one part of the current covenant because it has ableist language in it that actually isn't as clear about what we are doing together. And then we're going to add, proposing to add a behavioral covenant. So why change? Why is it that we need to change at all? We could have the next slide. So the current OUUC covenant is lovely, and we're planning to keep it. We're going to add to it. I'm told it was created in response to some events, some conflicts that had happened at OUUC back in the day. It is wordy, and it's kind of vague in places. So it's hard to tell when we are in covenant or out of covenant. And because it's not clear when someone is out of covenant, it's not clear when our non-covenantal behavior policy is to be implemented. That is a policy that was created by the board a couple of years ago in response to some behavior that was of concern. And this, it was created to address some hurts that had lingered and also some things that have happened since I've been here. One thing to notice is that the current covenant uses "we will" language in its statements, which is an inclusive thing. You know, it talks about us as a community. It suggests unity. It also diffuses responsibility because it's not clear what our individual responsibility is. And so the proposed behavioral covenant intentionally uses "I will" language, so that it's more clear what our individual responsibility is and that we are responsible for our own behavior. So just to be clear about what the language proposed changes in the current covenant, the change is in the phrase to remove ableist language. Instead of "because we choose to walk together, we promise to," it's "because we choose to journey together, we promise to." Not only does it get rid of the ableist language, but I think it's a more accurate representation of what we're doing together. So this is what's happened so far regarding this covenant modification. Last October 30th, we had a covenant workshop with Reverend Carol McKinley, the affiliated community minister here at OUUC, and Reverend Summer Albayati, and they led the service and a covenant workshop that day to just explore the meaning of covenant and such. And then a writing team went to work using the current covenant, the feedback from that workshop, and examples of behavioral covenants from other congregations and UU congregations to create a first draft of a proposed OUUC behavioral covenant. That first draft went to the Board of Trustees on March 9th of this year, and it came to the congregation for feedback on March 19th. That was part one, the first forum that we had with feedback. And the writing team members facilitated those group discussions, and they took all of the feedback collected that day and made some revisions. So what you'll see in the document we're sharing actually has the track changes in it, so you can see the changes that the writing team made, so it's very transparent. And one of the other things that I heard in the forum in March is, what's this Healthy Congregations team and where are they? And so I have been working to convene the Healthy Congregations team, and those folks are here today, and I'll want to introduce them to you. So there are 5 people who have agreed to be on the Healthy Congregations team and 1 person who will act as a consultant. So we want to thank Don Melnick, Dan Donahue. If you just raise your hand or let folks know who you are. Don Melnick, Dan Donahue, Martha Nikoloff, Alice Curtis, and Barb Okeson have all agreed to serve on this team, so thank you so much. And then Megan Johnston, who some of you may know as the harp player in the congregation. Megan is a trained mediation specialist and has agreed to be a consultant to the Healthy Congregations team. I'm also going to recommend to the team that we gather a group of consultants who can help us have as clear a vision of our congregation and its health as possible. This group is just beginning, and thank you to the 5 of you for saying yes or coming forward to volunteer. So what's next then is some small group discussion. We'll have, I'm thinking, probably 5 or so groups on site, and then however many we need online to have 5 or 6 people in a group so that there's plenty of time for conversation. And I'm requesting that you engage with these questions. So first is read the proposed changes, the current covenant and the proposed behavioral covenant, and just reflect on how does it make you feel? And then what do you think about it? And if there's any further feedback about what's proposed, the language or the tone or whatever, we'd appreciate that. And then the second thing is I'd like you to consider whether the covenant should apply to the ministers and other OUUC employees. And this came up because as a staff, we've been talking about this proposed behavioral covenant. And there's a statement in both covenants. In the current covenant, it says, because we value our congregation, we promise to enhance its health with our time, talent, energy, and financial resources, and honor our commitments here. The behavioral covenant says, I will, to the best of my ability, contribute my time, talent, energy, and financial resources, and will honor my commitments to OUUC. Now, one of the questions for staff is a staff member said, is a financial commitment, is a pledge expected of staff members here? And the answer is no, right? And so that kind of raised the question of, while we want to be inclusive, that everyone is involved in the covenant and held to those standards, really, does it apply to staff in the same way? Because we have a different relationship with the congregation. And so just some discussion about that I think might be helpful, and what do you think? And then the last thing I would appreciate some feedback on, and I think the board would as well, is what process do you think we should have for adopting any changes to the covenant? I've asked around, and everybody I've asked so far doesn't remember how the last covenant got adopted. And so some folks have said, well, the board can decide. Other folks have said we should have a congregational vote. Is there another process that we should use? So what do you think? What do you think the process should be to change or modify the covenant? Are those things clear? And we'll have the slides up and put them in the chat and such. Okay, if you have any questions, I'll be milling around. So let's go into the small groups then. And what I'm going to ask is that form a group of 5 or 6 around the sanctuary or in the commons if you like, and then we'll do breakout rooms online. have someone who is kind of in charge of helping you go through the questions and make sure that everybody has a chance to share. And then I'd appreciate it if you would also choose a scribe or someone who can take notes. For on-site, there's butcher paper and markers up here, as well as handouts. For online, if you want to put things in an email or in a Google Doc or the chat or whatever you would like in order to get that information to me, that would be helpful. We'll keep time for you. We'll come back about 12:20 or 12:25, somewhere in there. So there's lots of time to talk and for folks to express their opinions. And what I'd like out of today then is to have that feedback come to me so I can share with the writing team if there's changes to be made. I can share with the board what the process might be, and if there are further changes. So, any questions before we go into the small groups? Any questions online? Jean.
Well, I have a question. I just would like to. Jean, let me get you. Oh, so
Online can hear you.
I just wanted to mention this particular thing that struck me when I read through the draft for all the small groups to consider, which is, do we need the will? If this is something that we're adopting and that each of us is doing, for example, where it says, I will assume that others have positive intentions. What if it said, I assume that others have positive intentions? So I'd like you all to think about removing the word will and see what that, it seems more active to me. So just as a thought for all the small groups.
Thank you, Jean.
Just a small question. I would like to know if this behavioral covenant has been reviewed against the oath that we take as new members to OUUC. Do we take an oath as members to comply or perform in a certain way?
What a great question, Lee. And you know, what we ask new members to say "I will" in response to has changed over time. It was quite long when I arrived. COVID changed everything, and when we went online, we made things a little bit shorter. But essentially, what new members say "I will" to is that they will abide by the covenant that we create together, whatever that covenant might be. So that's probably the short answer. But what a great connection, Lee. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, go.